Introducing the judges. Chief Referee, Lu Xiaoling, USA. Assistant Chief Referee, Aaron Anthony Jacobs, Cyprus. Assistant Chief Referee, Sherry Mustafa, Egypt. On Taolu Arena, 1 Head Judge, 1 Yan, China. Judge number 1, Ahmed Syed Khalid Erkin, Egypt. Judge number 2, Patricia Garrido, France. Judge number 3, Supremi Saburo, Indonesia. Judge number 4, Federico Gabriel Perez, Argentina. Judge number 5, Iman Tong, Hong Kong, China. Judge number 6, Huang Li, Vietnam. On Taolu Arena 2, the head judge, Ivan, Indonesia. Judge number 1, Jun Bang Tan, Singapore. Judge number 2, Elisete del Carmen Toledo, People's Republic of China. Chen Chong-un, Macau, China. Alexei Mosak, Ukraine. Judge number 5, Wushu Park, Korea. Judge number 6, Elif Akuz, Turkey. Athletes, march in. Taolu judges, please be seated. Judges, please be seated. Now on Taolu Arena 1, Boys Daoshu category. And on Taolu Arena 2, Girls 42 forms, Chicha B category.
Estamos de volta à transmissão do 7º Campeonato Júnior Mundial de Wushu, que acontece aqui em Brasília, capital do Brasil. Ao meu lado, o renomado coreógrafo internacional que vai nos ajudar hoje nos comentários, Alan. Alan, welcome.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to day 3 of the 7th World Junior Wushu Championships. Myself, Alan Tang, along with Raphael, we're here commentating at Field of Play number 1, where we will see the Group A Men's Daoshu Broadsword event. And right away, we have Chung Wen Tan performing from Malaysia.
Primeira apresentação da Malásia.
And in the Group A Daoshu event, we have seen throughout the few days, Group A will comprise of both athletes performing the compulsory Group A routine in addition to what we call optional routines. And Changwan Tan has chosen, this is an optional routine where the athletes choreograph their own combinations of movements, techniques, place them together along with compulsory components.
Está vendo a apresentação aí do tipo opcional. Daqui a pouco ele vai explicar pouco mais o que seria.
The broadsword is a single-bladed weapon, showcasing speed, ferocity, timing.
Velocidade, sagacidade, ele está ressaltando aí na apresentação.
He's chosen to place quite a few number of difficulty moves, including the outside 540-degree kick,
Movimentos difíceis seguidos de chutes.
his aerial and jump slap kick combination, along with quite a few additional difficulty components. But very important in the broadsword, what you will see is how they control that weapon, where they're targeting their strikes. They're keeping the sword, the dull side, or the spine of the sword along their back, very, very important, and that acts as a defensive mechanism using the sword.
O importante da luta de espadas é a defesa e o ataque bem sincronizados, que é o que a gente viu aí nessa apresentação.
And like every other Group B or A or senior level event, the minimum time for these routines is 1 minute and 20 seconds, but they can go all the way up to 1 minute 40 while the athlete still maintains and showcases their endurance, their stamina, and their speed.
O tempo de apresentação é de 1 minuto e 20, mas o atleta pode ir até 4 minutos. Is the minimum 1 minute and 20 seconds?
Correct. The minimum timing for these routines are 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Mínimo é 1 minuto e 20 segundos. The score?
Final score for Changwan Tan is 9.32. So we see no deductions in the Group A category and a Group B mark of 4.32. That currently puts him into the first place. And we have our second competitor, is Sashi Tamang from India.
O segundo competidor é da Índia.
And as well, he has chosen to perform and demonstrate an optional routine.
Também uma demonstração opcional.
Typically, athletes, right at the beginning of the routine, they'll showcase how fast and how quick they're able to maneuver that weapon.
Mostram rápido, conseguem mover.
Then they add in, these are several difficulty components. There's a front slap kick, aerial cartwheel, inside jump kick into a horse stance landing. They want to ensure that that kicking leg is above the shoulder, because that is one of the technical merits that the judges are looking for.
Os movimentos mais esperados pelos juízes, esse que ele acabou de fazer. Passa a espada acima do ombro.
They want to see full extensions of that leg during those kicks.
Essa sequência de chutes também.
And being the very first time that our athletes are using these optional routines, many have wondered whether or not there is an advantage or disadvantage in using an optional routine versus a compulsory routine. And we have seen so far in the competition, really there has been no advantage. At the end of the day, the good athletes who perform well, whether they perform the optional or compulsory routine, have done very well in their scoring.
Alguns desses atletas é a primeira vez que eles estão fazendo essa modalidade opcional. Geralmente eles fazem a composta, que já é por movimentos pré-determinados. Aguardar aí a pontuação.
Right now we wait for the score from our second athlete, Sashi Tamang from India. For athletes that are not as well versed in Wushu, they may find optional routines more advantageous in competition because you are provided the option of doing less technical movements, so giving the judges less opportunity to deduct you on the technical merit side. However, you must have good choreography and good presentation in order to score well regardless.
Tá falando que opcional é mais fácil de pontuar porque os juízes têm como deduzir menos os pontos.
His final score 9.05 with one deduction.
9.5, uma dedução, quer dizer um erro que eles marcaram.
Next we have Jung-Yo Park from Korea.
Próxima apresentação da Coreia.
We should tell them to zoom in. And we see that many more athletes in the Group A broadsword and Wushu events have opted to demonstrate optional routines, but whereas in the southern styles, we have seen less of that. This new rule change was implemented several months ago, so it definitely benefits those athletes that have had a optional routine in their repertoire since the beginning. So that way they have opted to demonstrate a routine that they have been perhaps more comfortable performing. And as I mentioned, typically optional routines don't have as many technical merits as the compulsory form. So they benefit in a way, whereas there is less Group A panel judge deduction areas. However, they still are required to demonstrate one of each of the required stances and broadsword movements.
Ele reforça aí que os movimentos opcionais, que é isso que eles estão demonstrando, são mais fáceis, dá mais liberdade para eles e menos opções dos juízes deduzir, tirar pontos deles das apresentações. Eles ficam mais livres e fica até mais fácil essa apresentação opcional, que é como eles chamam.
In today's competition, we have a group of 16 competitors in the Group A Daoshu. And the Group A meaning the athletes 16 to 18 years of age. And for Jung-Yo Park, final score 9.28. Again, you see with the optional routines, very little areas for deduction in the Group A score. And we'll see with performers demonstrating the compulsory form whether or not there are more deductions.
A gente vê aí, ele teve poucos pontos tirados. Na forma composta, a gente vê muito mais pontos tirados do que essa que é opcional.
This is Diego Ledesma from Argentina, and he is demonstrating the compulsory routine. So as you can notice, Rafael, in this form you'll see many more stances, and that is the design of the compulsory form, whereas those individuals demonstrating an optional routine will choose to do very few stances.
Is it optional or
This is a compulsory routine.
Aí, no caso, a gente vê uma sequência de movimentos compostos. No caso, essa é a apresentação dele. Mais movimentos pré-determinados, já conhecidos.
But what I've noticed in yesterday's Group A Southern events, that even those athletes who have demonstrated the compulsory routine, those who have done it cleanly and clearly have still done very, very well in competition.
Então, ressaltando que os grupos de ontem fizeram uma boa apresentação.
Deixa eu entender. Então, se o atleta estiver longe, mantém aberto para pegar teu.
What kind of movements make a deduction?
The movements that make deductions in all of the routines, there are obviously the stances, which are very, very important, and a big area where the judges are looking for. So such as the mabu, or the horse stance, the gongbu, the bow stance, the shubu, which is the empty stance, or the pubu, which is the drop stance. Those are very common areas in most of the Taolu events, but specific to each different events, such as the broadsword or straight sword, or the barehanded routines, there are as well elements specific to that event. So for example, the broadsword, there are several compulsory movements that the judges are looking for. They're looking for how close the sword is controlled to the body of the athlete. For example, when they're wrapping the sword around their back, it must touch their back to protect it during application. But if the athletes do not showcase that they understand the basic techniques of it, those are areas where the judges will deduct.
Dos pontos que eles costumam deduzir mais, o Alan estava explicando pra gente, que é quando a proximidade da espada no corpo do atleta, quando ele consegue fazer o movimento mais próximo.
So you see Diego's routine, several deductions, the 50 for stances, 22, 71, those are for sword movements, 70 is for losing balance, and 30 is for his kick not being over his shoulder. So several deductions in his technical merit. And many good athletes who demonstrate the compulsory form, they are able to accomplish all of those movements without deduction. But as we mentioned, in optional forms, many of the athletes will just simply have less areas for the judges to deduct.
Pode ver aí, enquanto os outros tiraram 9, esse aí tirou 7,67, porque fez um movimento composto.
This is Pang Zhang Ong from Singapore.
Singapura, apresentação agora.
And as well, he is demonstrating the compulsory A routine.
Mais uma apresentação dos movimentos compostos.
Front slap kick, aerial into an inside jump kick, split landing. So as well, in many ways, the compulsory routine, the Group A, the way it has been designed, is actually much more difficult than most optional routines.
Os movimentos compostos ele está explicando que são muito mais difíceis do que os opcionais. Why these?
Just because of the intricacy of the movements. In the Group A compulsory forms, this is the third set of routines by the International Wushu Federation. The movements are very intricate. There are many what we call standard combinations that many athletes will choose not to do when they do optional routines. So it's much more difficult in the sense of performing them in an accurate and very fast, clear manner.
Eu falo como são movimentos já conhecidos por todo mundo do Wushu, eles querem um movimento perfeito e por isso eles pontuam mais e tiram mais pontos.
Elas têm que lembrar que na hora que acaba o treino, eles não vão ficar lembrando que tem que estar do padrão.
They're playing the field and they know what to expect. So if you don't perform those movements up to the standard, they know exactly how it should look and as well how it should be performed. So that as well, you can say, is slightly a disadvantage to the athletes who are performing the compulsory routine. But again, it comes down to the ability of the athlete. If they do it well, regardless of the routine, they will score high.
Ele está explicando. Okay.
So you see 3 deductions there, 51, 53, those being his stances. Okay, I saw his drop stance wasn't quite low enough where the body must sit onto the rear leg. And then the 51, where you're looking at the horse stance. Okay, so the judges knew where to look, and then as well the sword movement. So his final score, 8.90.
Alguns problemas na base de fazer os movimentos. E anteriormente ele estava explicando que os juízes já sabem nos movimentos compostos o que eles esperam. Então, se tiver um mínimo erro, eles tiram pontos mais ainda. Próxima apresentação.
Masaya Ono from Japan.
Próxima apresentação, Masaya Ono do Japão.
And slap kick again, aerial combination, inside kick, split landing.
They can use 4 minutes to presentation.
I'm sorry?
Can they use 4 minutes for the presentation?
No, typically it's about a minute and 20 seconds, up to about a minute and 40. With the compulsory form, most athletes will be able to complete it in about 120 to 130. And that is indicative of how fast they are performing and as well their rhythm.
Geralmente o tempo usado para eles é de 1 minuto e 30 a 1 minuto e 40 de apresentação.
As well, this is a compulsory routine.
Movimentos compostos.
And I'm sure you'll see a very strong score. He demonstrated most of the compulsory movements very cleanly. Good speed, good rhythm.
Alan acredita aí que ela teve uma boa pontuação, os movimentos foram bem limpos, bem claros. Clear movements like this, yeah?
I'm sorry?
Clear movements.
Clear movements, yes.
Com ele tá para fechar no monitor.
Confirmando com ele, movimentos claros mesmo.
Aí, ó.
And his final score, 9.16, good enough for third place.
O Alan tinha razão aí, 9.16.
And you see the 20 code is for his front sweep. And although actually on our point of view from up here, he performed it quite well, but what the judges are looking for is that he is absolutely sitting on that back leg while sweeping and that his foot does not come off of the carpet. But as you can imagine, those doing optional forms, a lot of them will choose not to have a front sweep in their routine. Whereas the compulsory form, you have to have it. So that gives an opportunity for the judges to deduct if you do not perform it to expectation.
Uma das coisas que eles esperam é não tocar tanto o pé no chão quando estiver fazendo a apresentação de saltos. E é isso que os juízes esperam, por isso que eles tiraram alguns pontos no caso.
This is Kwan Ho Kwok from Hong Kong.
Agora Hong Kong se apresentando.
This as well is an optional routine. You see he added a level of difficulty, which is a 360-degree butterfly twist. He had a front inside drop kick landing. However, typically a requirement of that is the athlete should not be bouncing off of that floor when he does that kick. This is the sword wrap. You see how the sword touches the back as it wraps around the body. Front stretch kick, very difficult difficulty element, not in the sense of it being hard to do, but it's hard to do well.
Movimentos opcionais que ele está fazendo, a espada está passando bastante próximo do corpo dele e são movimentos bem difíceis, o Alan está reforçando aqui.
Coming up to his final section. Drop stance. So you see, there's only one drop stance, one empty stance that he does in this routine, but in the compulsory routine, you see many more of them.
De parar nas opcionais são bem restritas, já nas compostas são muitas opções. O Alan que está comentando com a gente, só reforçando, ele já foi coreógrafo de alguns filmes do Jet Li. A gente conhece aí, é famoso nos filmes de Kung Fu. I'm talking about you, a choreographer of Jet Li movies.
Not necessarily. I've worked with many different action performers, but we work in all different types of film, anything to do with movement. And as we see, a very good score for Final Clock, 9.323, but his deduction is a code 50. Okay, which we saw that that was for his bow stance, and actually you noticed that when he did his bow stance, it wasn't quite, his knee wasn't forward enough, and that's what he got deducted for. It was too wide, right? So even though he had only one bow stance in his form, he had to ensure that it was done properly.
Por alguns problemas nos movimentos aí do joelho que prejudicou ele por causa dessas deduções. Ficou em terceiro lugar com 9.23.
This is Lone Drouard from France. Very quick opening. That's typically what you want to showcase to the judges, is how fast you're able to use that broadsword. Does a 360-degree outside lotus kick. A butterfly twist, very nice and straight, into inside 360 horse stance landing.
Bases aí chamadas de cavalo, de borboleta, alguns movimentos. Lembrando que os movimentos são inspirados nos movimentos dos animais.
Some basic sword work. Oh, a slight wobble there, you see. And the judges are looking very closely at that. Very good basic fundamental stances, though, he's showing.
Boa base que ele está mostrando, o Alan está comentando.
But that one slight loss of balance might hurt him at the end.
Is it optional or composed?
This is an optional routine. But the sword work, he's performing very well.
Ele está gostando da apresentação dele, inclusive a
Empty stance. Very well done. A good form by power, end of the routine. Showcase your control of the weapon.
Movimentos com a espada bem rápidos, bem próximos ao corpo, o que vai possibilitar dar mais pontos para ele, o francês. Luan Drew.
And his final score, 9.17. Very well done. And there you see that 70 code, which was for that slight loss of balance.
9.17. As number 9, please enter the
E
arena.
a pontuação dele 9.17 do francês. Ele aparece em quarto lugar no ranking dessas apresentações de hoje. Brasileiro, ó.
Victor Saraiva.
Saraiva. Vitor Saraiva, brasileiro, se apresentando agora. Torcida aí, forte no ginásio.
This is the Group A compulsory form. You see, in this form, there's one bow stance, and there's many more to come. And that's why it is more difficult, and you must demonstrate so many basic movements. Slight fall there, so when he touches the hand, definitely that's a major reduction.
Ele toca a mão no chão, realmente é tirado o ponto.
Leading up.
Optional.
This is a compulsory routine.
De movimentos compostos aí.
Front sweep. You see that's second bow stance already.
A base apresentada por ele é bastante importante. Essas bases eles avaliam bastante quando eles param.
Butterfly kick into a lotus stance landing. To his final drop stance.
Você vê a apresentação aí do brasileiro Vitor Saraiva se apresentando em casa. O único brasileiro nessa parte da manhã na competição.
The 9th competitor in this field of 16. We're just past the halfway mark. As Victor awaits for his score. His performance of the Group A boys compulsory Daoshu.
Sequência de movimentos com espada, chamada de Daoshu. Guardando a nota aí do brasileiro.
And his final score 8.30. So you see several deductions for both his 50, which is his mabu,
8.3. As the number
or sorry, his
10,
gongbu,
please
his
enter
bow
the
stance.
arena. As the number
And as
12,
well, you see
please
deductions there being 71. Okay, in Daoshu competition.
Teve várias deduções aí, de acordo com vários movimentos. O brasileiro ficou em 8º lugar com 8.3. Até agora foram 9 apresentações e agora a gente vai com o lutador da Suíça, Aurélio D'Angelo.
So that 71 is for that touch on the floor. Major error. But now we have, this is our athlete from Switzerland, Aurelio D'Angelo. Inside jump kick into a horse stance landing. So he is demonstrating. This is a optional routine.
Tô demonstrando aí uma
But you see,
profissionais.
his pace is much slower than most of the top athletes right now. And that's definitely a big factor when looking at his overall performance score, which is the Group B score. See the bounce there. You really don't want to do that move if your kicking leg is bouncing off the floor. You want it to be very sharp and very strong landing.
O Alan está comentando aí que ele está bem mais lento que os demais competidores.
Another bow stance. This is empty stance. You must do one of those at least in your routine.
Is he less faster because he's tall?
Really, I've seen tall people go very fast as well. It's a matter of really improving the training, ensuring you have the strength, the stamina, and broadsword. That is one of the essential aspects required. Is really you have to look fast and be ferocious with this weapon.
Perguntei se ele está lento porque ele é alto. Ele falou que não, já viu bastante atleta alto bem rápido. E a espada prejudica um pouco a desenvoltura dele. Guardar aí a nota do lutador da Suíça, Aurélio D'Angelo. Muito tenso aí pelos lutadores. You say fighters in this? Can you say fighters?
We can say athletes or performers because really they're doing a solo performance, so they're not
Players.
fighting anybody. Yes, players are okay too. But when you talk about the speed and the intent of the athlete, it is what we call fighting speed. That's how fast they should be going, as though they are fighting.
Athlete is better.
Yeah.
Perguntando para ele se pode chamar de lutadores, ele diz que não, que atletas é melhor, mais correto. Ou competidores. Aguardando aí a nota do atleta da Suíça. In Brazil, moments like this we say so tense.
The athlete's waiting for his mark as the judges are deliberating. And his final score, 8.75. So you see his B score is much lower based on his performance level, but there was one deduction for his stance, the 53 code.
Deduções aí de acordo com quem parou bastante errado, ficou em 8º lugar.
And that 53 is for his drop stance. And next we have Rex Lamb from Canada. No, this is Rex Lamb from Canada. Demonstrating the movements from the compulsory A form.
Do Canadá agora.
From my hometown.
O Alan é de lá e ele inclusive é dos coreógrafos do time canadense.
You see in comparison, he's a very tall athlete as well, but very quick movements with the sword.
Muito rápido com a espada.
But in general, those demonstrating the optional routine, they'll really put choreography in there that will highlight how fast they can go. And in the compulsory form, you're limited to doing what is already set out in that routine.
This is optional.
This is compulsory, with a few alterations to change a few difficulty moves. Like his inside jump kick was a horse stance landing rather than a split landing. But because they allow for the optional routine, so the athletes can choose to change some of the movements into form.
Tá apresentando aí a parte composta. Ele diz que é muito mais difícil a composta do que a opcional e a composta que o canadense está apresentando. Os movimentos têm que ser bem mais perfeitos.
That's Rex Lamb from Canada. He is athlete number 12. So we have 4 more athletes to go in this men's Daoshu Group A division.
Temos a apresentação de 12 atletas, faltam mais 4 da categoria Daoshu, que é essa apresentação com espadas do Wushu. Estamos nos
His final score, 9.00.
Final score class number 12.
And 53 is a deduction for that drop stance, or kupu, where the judges are looking for that front leg to be absolutely straight, foot turned in, and the athlete sitting right onto that rear leg.
Alguns problemas aí no pé, do jeito que ele parou, foi por isso que eles fizeram essas deduções. E ele termina em 7º lugar. A gente vê aí o ranking geral, o brasileiro aparece em 10º lugar. Lembrando que até agora foram 12 apresentações. Está assistindo o 7º Campeonato Mundial Júnior de Wushu, acontece aqui em Brasília, capital do Brasil. O próximo atleta é do Irã, Sayed Mohamed Hosseini.
Very quick movements. This is an optional routine. That's a 540-degree outside lotus kick.
Apresentação opcional aí, movimentos livres, ele que cria. Cria no sentido de livre para fazer a apresentação da forma que ele quiser, diferente dos movimentos compostos. Aí no caso é uma opcional. Is he faster than the others?
Yeah, he's quite powerful. You see, that's a trademark of the Iranian athletes. Their training style is very powerful, very strong.
Tá falando aí que os iranianos são conhecidos por serem bem fortes e o estilo deles bem marcante. Eu perguntei se ele é mais rápido que os outros, ele disse que sim.
And I've seen that as a trait amongst their whole team. And their athletes really showcase clarity and strength in their movement.
Também tem bastante força nos movimentos deles. Is the face analyzed by the judge?
Yes, definitely. The face or the expression is a big part of their Group B mark, which is their expression or intent. And being a martial art routine, the athletes have to showcase that ferocity applicable to that style, obviously, of the form. It should showcase their intent in using their movements, right? And even though they're performing alone, it should look as though they are attacking or defending.
Eu perguntei para ele se o rosto, as expressões influenciam. Ele disse que sim, bastante. E quanto mais ferocidade o atleta mostrar, melhor e leva mais pontos por isso.
There's Sayed Mohamed Husani from Iran, awaiting his final score in the men's Daoshu Group A.
Guardando aí a nota final do atleta iraniano.
Aquela espada dá bem no lombo dele do 01.
How many judges do you have here?
In a panel for the World Junior Championships, there is a panel of 7 judges, okay, 7 scoring judges. 3 judges are in charge of the technical merit, which is the Group B panel judge. They're in charge of deducting marks or deducting points based on the accuracy and the performance of their technical requirements.
3 for deductions.
Correct. So every time the athlete does a technical error, 2 of the 3, or a majority of the judges, must see it and then input it onto their system in order for it to register. So sometimes, based on the angle, you will see them make mistakes and not deduct for errors, but when they're apparent, you assume all the judges see it and that they will register it in their system when they mark. Whereas the Group B judges are the overall performance. So the Group A is the technical judge, Group B is the overall performance judge. 4 of them give a score based on the speed, the rhythm.
3 for deduction.
3 for deduction, 4 to give. Yes.
Okay.
So 4 give. 4 judges give marks out of 5 based on their overall performance, how fast the athlete is, how powerful, the rhythm, the expression, and generally the overall performance of the athlete. And of those scores, the average mark is taken, and that is what the B score is. Oh, sorry, the B score. So the 2 marks are added together at the end, and it is a score out of 10.
7 juízes na competição, 3 para deduzir os pontos, que tiram pontos, veem as penalidades, e 4 que dão pontos de acordo com os movimentos dos atletas.
As the athletes move on from the junior championship to the senior, where everyone is demonstrating optional routines, then the judge panel increases, and there are actually 10 judges, whereas there's an added component to their mark, which is the difficulty or panel C judging, and that is scored out of 2. So at the senior level competition, there is a C panel judge out of 2, a technical panel, which is out of 3, and then the overall, technical panel out of 5, and then an overall performance out of 3.
E no adulto são 10 juízes.
His final score, very well done, 9.37, which puts him into first place. So a very strong performance by Syed Mohammed.
Please enter the arena. As number 16, please
Informação
prepare.
sobre performance fica bastante forte.
Our next athlete is from Ukraine. This is Daniel Fishenko.
Atleta da Ucrânia.
He is demonstrating a compulsory Group A routine.
Muito composto.
He is competitor number 14. So 2 more athletes to go in this men's Group A Daoshu. Well, actually, this is a Mexican athlete. This is Sergio Barrientos. So he is our athlete number 15. So we have 1 more to go in this men's Daoshu event.
What is the name of this jump with a kick?
That is the inside crescent kick, inside jump kick. So when the foot goes inward, it's an inside jump kick. When the foot goes outward, it is an outside or lotus kick. That's our athlete from Mexico. That's Sergio Barrientos. That's an aerial cartwheel into an inside jump kick, split landing.
Movimentos aí.
That's an outside lotus or outside 360 kick. This is a butterfly kick. That's a lotus stance landing.
Borboleta, que eles chamam. Mais uma vez, os movimentos do Wushu são baseados nos movimentos dos animais. Nesse caso é o chute borboleta.
His final score 8.70. So 2 deductions for stances, and you'll notice very easy way to read the deduction chart is anything in the 50s are stances, and that's deduction that is in particular to all different routines.
Próxima apresentação é do atleta da Indonésia.
Our
Jason.
final athlete. And the 20 being his deduction for that front sweep. So you see that front sweep is very easy to have an error in it, which is why you see people doing the option routines. Many of them choose not to do it. This as well as a compulsory routine.
Esses são movimentos compostos que eu prefiro fazer.
Here's the front sweep. You see that foot flat to the floor. Bow stance. Butterfly kick. Low stance.
De casa ver esse barulho aí é feito pela espada, que a lâmina dela é completamente flexível. There's a specific name of the sport?
This is the broadsword, Daoshu. So the difference between the Daoshu and Tian is the broadsword is a single-edged weapon. So one side is the spine, the other side is the blade. And the Tian is a double-edged weapon. So both sides of the swords are blade. And
Essa aí é a espada Taolu, que só tem lado de lâmina.
it's obviously it's very different in the application of the weapon.
Does it cut?
It does. It is a real sword. Many people, it's a very common question, are we using real swords in Wushu? They are real, they're made of metal, and they can cut, especially when you're performing it very quickly. That's Jason Widayawa. That is a 9.15 final score. And again, you see the 20, even though his sweep was pretty well done, the judges are very, very strict, and they did deduct for a sweep. So that is the strategy for most people doing optional routine is just to skip out and not do the sweep. So that way they won't have any chance of getting deducted for that mark.
Os movimentos eles foram bem precisos, mas os juízes não perdoam qualquer movimento errado, eles tiram ponto mesmo, foi o caso que tiraram.
And our final standings is Syed Mohammed from Iran takes the gold medal with first place.
A Argentina ficou em último e Brasil em penúltimo. Primeiro lugar.
And rounding up, I believe it was the athlete. The power. So when you see the athlete thrust or strike the sword out, it showcases their energy from their body out to the tip of the sword. And if you did not do the movement properly, it is actually very difficult. So anyone picking up that sword, they cannot necessarily make that sound. It takes a bit of training and energy in order to extend your energy from your body to the tip of the weapon. So when the athletes perform, it's an aid or a tool that the judges can see of how strong the thrust is and the direction in which the power is going.
Bom, vamos agora à apresentação das garotas. Resumindo o que o Alan estava falando, perguntei se essa espada corta. Realmente essa espada corta. E alguns atletas até se machucam nos treinamentos, nas apresentações mais difíceis. Mas acontece.
This is Kimberly Ong from Singapore, and she is demonstrating this is the compulsory Group A routine.
Atleta de Singapura se apresentando.
Inside crescent kick, into a split landing.
wasn't lined. They took points for these?
They can. What they are really looking for is how straight your legs are, though. That's the major deduction when they do the split landing, and that there's no movement or bounce off of it. You see, as Kimberly did her front sweep as well, she definitely did lose balance there. So she might not only lose marks for her front sweep, but as well the code 70, which is loss of balance.
Se ela não parar retinho, igual ela parou ali naquele tipo de espaguete, ela realmente perde.
With any of the routines, the main priority for the athlete is to demonstrate their form without making the mistakes. That is what they are able to control, is to not get deducted for their compulsory requirements. Because once you get deducted, it really brings your score down. So at the end of the day, those athletes with very few or no deductions will typically place at the top.
Diz que o mais importante para os atletas é ficar atentos e fazer os movimentos perfeitos e se atentar aí a não errar. E se errar realmente é onde tiram pontos. Se fizerem os movimentos perfeitos, eles vão com certeza garantir o topo da lista dos melhores atletas. A gente vê aí a apresentação da primeira atleta feminina de Singapura.
So you see her final score, 8.75. So there's the deduction for the sweep, for the loss of balance, for her bow stance, and as well a code 22 that is in the broadsword, is that the legs are not aligned on that front split landing, what you were talking about, right? So they did catch her for that there was no alignment.
Por causa daquele espaguete não alinhado, aquela abertura de pernas, ela pode ter sido penalizada por isso. Agora,
Zeynep Akutz from Turkey. So she
da Turquia,
has chosen to do a optional routine. So what
movimentos opcionais.
you'll notice is in watching her other events, she opts to do very little difficulty movements. So at the end of the day, there's little chance for her to get deductions for it. But at the same time, that typically does hurt the athlete's Group B or overall performance mark.
Essa atleta é conhecida por fazer movimentos bem difíceis, por isso, às vezes, ela perde muito ponto. The kind of clothes is different by religions, right?
Correct. You'll see the traditional hijab worn by many of the athletes with the, I believe it's the Muslim religion, and they make it very beautiful. They match it with their outfit, a lot of design on it, and it actually, in many ways, it adds value to the overall look of that uniform. It's very nice. So you see Zeynep very, very little difficulty movement. So she'll probably have very little technical deductions. However, I don't expect her Group B mark to be very high.
Estava falando aí, você vê ela com a cabeça toda tampada, porque ela vem de uma religião islâmica, e por isso aí as roupas são diferentes de alguns países para determinados atletas, né? Para respeitar a religião de cada um. Aí no caso a gente vê a atleta da Turquia, guardando a pontuação.
Precisa mais não, né? Não, precisa. Fica aí. Então não paga nenhum.
And her final score, 9.06, with one deduction for her stances.
Number 2, 9.06. As number 3, please enter the arena.
Turkey.
As number 4, please prepare.
And this is our next athlete. She is from the Ukraine. This is Daria Luita. She did very, very well in her staff routine yesterday. Very strong athlete, good speed. She had very strong jumps in yesterday's performance. Very, very quickly.
Os caras são muito rápidos.
And she is performing the compulsory form. There's that front sweep. So you see where her toe, I believe she will get a deduction for that, and that wobble there on her bow stance.
Tá errando alguns passes, provavelmente ela é penalizada por isso.
Sorry, this is my mistake. This is Ksenia Bakunova from Belarus.
Atleta da Bielorrússia. This category is for weight or age?
This is by age.
Nesse caso são por idade. Atleta da Bielorrússia. Se apresentando.
The age of the Group A athletes, 16 to 18 years old. So you see that slight wobble in her back leg. Butterfly kick into lotus stance.
Chute borboleta, que é como eles chamam esse golpe. Guardar a pontuação da atleta da Bielorrússia.
As I mentioned, Ksenia did very well in her cudgel or staff routine yesterday. However, today, a couple of deductions there. Final score 8.81, being the front sweep, losing balance, and as well having one of her kicks not above her shoulder level.
Chutes dela foram abaixo dos esperados e por isso ela teve algumas deduções. Ontem, o Alan falou que ela fez uma apresentação bem melhor.
And next we have Mia Tian from the USA.
Próxima apresentação dos Estados Unidos, Mia Tian.
Performing an optional routine.
Apresentação opcional, movimentos livres.
Outside lotus kick. Front slap kick into it. Inside 360 split landing.
Is that perfect?
No, I wouldn't say perfect, but whether or not it's enough for the judges to deduct. Depends on the angle sometimes of where that judge is looking from.
Foi perfeito aquela parada ali, ele falou que não, depende também do ângulo que o juiz está vendo.
Ela caiu. Ela ia cair e tem uma trabalhando. Então, eu queria que você então, ela ia cair.
Bow stance. Her drop stance. So you see in optional forms, the athletes are very strategic in the placement of those requirements to let the judges see. And what they're hoping for is to show the judges that there are no areas for deduction. Her empty stance.
Os atletas que fazem as apresentações opcionais ficam bem atentos no que mostrar para o juiz, para não ter deduções, retirada de pontos, no caso, essas deduções. A gente vê o replay da atleta dos Estados Unidos.
So you see from the back angle, sometimes you look, it looks pretty straight. From the front angle, it might be different. So that's why there are 3 judges in that Group A. And the majority of them, 2 out of 3, have to agree upon that deduction.
A gente viu ali que a parada dela, o espaguete que a gente conhece aqui no Brasil que ela fez, na outra câmera ficou mais perfeito, mas na câmera de dentro, não. Por isso que a gente tem 3 juízes.
And her final score 9.25. So you see, she did not get deducted for that.
Não teve deduções por isso, por essa parada. Foi a melhor nota até agora, 9.25 atleta dos Estados Unidos.
And next we have the athlete from Iran.
Essa iraniana aqui.
Próximo atleta do Irã.
And what you can expect is a very strong, fast routine. That has been a trademark of their athletes from their team. Very good endurance training.
Uma apresentação rápida e forte, conhecida por ser assim os atletas do Irã.
Very fast sword movement. She's demonstrating this is the compulsory routine. Front, jumping slap kick, aerial cartwheel, inside, split landing. You see the slight movement of her leg though.
Optional.
Compulsory routine.
Movimentos compostos ela está apresentando.
And a very slight wobble there as well. Oh, and her front sweep, you see, she actually dropped right to the floor, so that's a major deduction there.
Ela tocou no chão aí antes de parar, então provavelmente vai ser tirado pontos por isso. Butterfly kick,
Correct.
chute borboleta aí, no chão. A gente viu aí a apresentação da atleta iraniana.
So
Is
quite
that expected?
yeah, I'm sorry?
Is that expected, this kind of presentation by an Iran?
No, she should have done a bit better. She made quite a few errors there. And not only will that affect her A score, but definitely because of those movements, it also affects her B score in her overall performance because they were not slight errors, they were very apparent. So you see 3 deductions, final score 8.63.
Foi que foi aquém do esperado, a apresentação dela esperava muito mais, teve muitas reduções, muitos erros. Por isso, 8.63.
As number 7, please prepare.
A pior apresentação até agora. Próxima apresentação da Indonésia, Nadia Permata Setiawan. From Indonesia. Now, representation.
Is Nadia Setiawan. She chooses to demonstrate this as an optional routine.
Profissionais que ela está apresentando.
And jump kick, aerial, inside split landing. Straight but slight movement. We'll have to see if the judges catch that. A front jump kick into a lotus stance. Very quick combination.
Combinação bem rápida.
Butterfly kick, lotus stance.
Borboleta. Que secrecy.
Her bow stance. So she chooses just to place that at the end for the judges to look at.
Você está fazendo isso só para os juízes realmente olharem para a gente, fazendo isso bem de frente aos juízes. Porque a gente tem a visão inteira da apresentação, a gente consegue perceber isso. E olhando reto para eles, encarando mesmo. Is that good? Stare for the judges? Stare the judges? She did.
I wouldn't say stare at the judges. It's overall is like I said, it's your intent, how fierce you look. Her final score 9.17 with 1 deduction.
Final score of S number 6, 9.
All the presentation, they stare for the
Yeah, they gotta look fierce. It's a part of the training and part of the Wushu where you want to look and have a strong intent. So she did get deducted for that 22 code, which is that split landing, with her feet not being aligned in a straight line.
Ela não parou tão reta, por isso que ela foi tirada alguns pontos.
Is, I believe, Analia Martinez from Paraguay.
Apresentação da atleta paraguaia.
So she is performing the compulsory routine, but her ability to do the difficulty movements a little less. You can see her using her hand for that aerial cartwheel.
A habilidade dela não é tão boa, ela está ressaltando, está fazendo movimentos compostos, todos pré-determinados.
At the Junior Wushu Championships, you'll see many athletes. Not all are seasoned or veteran athletes. You'll see many athletes competing for the first time, and even on behalf of our country, that there is not as many Wushu practitioners. You'll see that you'll have much more intermediate or lower level athletes gaining their experience by coming to competitions like this. So it's very, yeah. So it is very important for these athletes to begin getting more experience and coming out to participate in order to develop their passion and their understanding of Wushu competition.
Fala que é importante o atleta aí ter mais experiência para vir participar do campeonato mundial como esse.
And as we say, it's not only about their score or coming out necessarily to win, but to gain that experience and as well to meet many international athletes to share their diversity and passion for the sport of Wushu.
Importante também é a integração entre esses atletas do mundo inteiro. Ordem da nota aí, a atleta do Paraguai. Anália Magali Aponte Martins. Why some scores take a little more time?
Because sometimes what happens is the head judges, when, for example, Analia, she has a lot of technical deductions, the head judge is really verifying them to make sure that they're all aligned to have accuracy.
A gente demorou mais porque ela teve muitos erros, seguido pela nota.
Yes, this is our final athlete, is Genesis Bobadilla from Argentina.
Atleta da Argentina se apresentando.
And of course, here in field of play number 1, we will have as well coming up next is the Group A Nandao. So see the same sure weapon, but a different style. That will be the Southern style Group A broadsword, which we call the Nandao, or the Southern sword. And following that, we will have the Group A girls Nandao in field of play number 1. And this is Alan Tang and Raphael here at the 7th World Junior Wushu Championships. Streaming live on YouTube channel Wushu TV from beautiful Brasília, Brazil. And the weather's been great this whole week that we've been here. Sunny, and the Brazilian winter is still very, very warm. Almost as warm as our Canadian summer.
Ela está elogiando o nosso clima, que está no inverno, mas está bastante ensolarado aqui em Brasília. que é bem quente mesmo estando no inverno.
And that is the final performance by Genesis Bobadilla from Argentina.
Última apresentação aí da Argentina. Está acompanhando o 7º Campeonato Mundial Júnior de Wushu que acontece aqui em Brasília.
See, she's very happy, very glad to be here. I'm sure she's enjoying this championship very, very much. I believe it's her first time here at the World Junior Wushu Championships.
Está ressaltando que ela está bastante feliz, provavelmente a primeira participação dela no Campeonato Mundial.
And that's one of the great feats, and you see the athletes when they socialize and enjoy themselves at this championship is really getting to meet all of the various athletes from different countries and meeting new friends. Her final score, 7.40. A lot of deductions, mainly for those losses of balance or stances, the required movements. However, I'm sure Genesis has not trained for a very long time, and she's competing against almost, you can say, professional athletes in many cases. So it was great for her to come out here. And in this field of 8 performers, our final standings.
It's going to be taken at the end of this session.
Chama Nandao. Is that a different sword than the last one?
Correct. This is now the Southern style sword. Same thing. It is a single-bladed weapon. This weapon was created not at the beginning. It was actually created specifically for this event by the IWUF, creating a short weapon sword for the Southern style. So you see is a much wider, heavier sword. You can hold it with either 1 or 2 hands. That is one of the unique traits of the Southern sword.
Is that heavy?
It's heavier than the regular broadsword, yes.
É uma espada mais pesada que as outras, foi criada especificamente para competição.
And we have a start list of 15 athletes in this event.
De 15 atletas que vão competir nessa modalidade.
Our first athlete will be from France, Simon Bauer.
O primeiro atleta aí é da França, Simon Bauer.
And they're just adjusting that start list. There's a few athletes that have dropped from this list.
Ajustando a lista com a presença correta dos atletas.
Arena 1, boys, Nandao A.
Lembrando aí que mais cedo o Alan estava me falando que realmente essas espadas usadas pelos atletas podem cortar. Não acontece muito, mas acontece. Vamos à primeira apresentação. O atleta francês. She seems the guy from Avatar. Yeah? Parece do desenho animado, personagem do Avatar. Avatar use Wushu?
Yes, very many Wushu movements are used in film. But now what you'll notice in a lot of film and television is it's not only Wushu, but it's a combination of many different types of martial arts. depending on the character in that sequence, whether they're using a certain type of weapon or their character is a big character, a more agile character. You'll see they utilize many, many different martial arts to showcase uniqueness. You don't want nowadays a movie just simply showcasing one martial art or another, but a mixture of different styles and a mixture of different techniques and movements. And Wushu is obviously very, very popular because of the fluidity, the flow, and as well the speed and the techniques.
Ela está falando que muitos filmes usam o Wushu e também outras artes marciais. O Wushu é bastante usado por causa da fluidez dele, dos movimentos. A gente vê a apresentação do atleta francês na modalidade Nandao. É utilizada essa espada.
And what you see as well as Wushu moves forward into the future is actually a lot of martial arts take Wushu movements and incorporate it into their routines. And you've seen hybrid, so that is really indication how more and more people around the world they recognize Wushu, the name and the sport, and appreciate the types of movements because as specific Wushu competition is not easy at all. It takes many years of training to get to the high performance level, as we have seen in this competition. However, many people cross-train and train in many other martial arts, but as well do Wushu specifically as cross-training. So the final score for Simon Bauer is 9.05. And he has one specific deduction, which is a code 73 in the Nandao.
A gente vê algumas deduções para o primeiro atleta francês.
And whereas code 73 is really where his sword has got caught in his body or has hit himself. Right, and that's a generic deduction for all the weapons.
Tiraram pontos aí porque a espada dele tocou no corpo em determinado momento. Próxima apresentação a gente vê o atleta da Ucrânia, Danilo Kniziev.
No, this is Nick Gonzalez from Paraguay. Nick Gonzalez.
Corrigindo, o atleta do Paraguai, Nick Gonzalez.
We're in field of play number 1 with the men's Group A Nandao event. In field of play number 2, we have the Group B boys Changchun going on. And of course, later on this afternoon, we'll start having the semifinals and finals of the Sanda competition that I know you have been watching for the last few days with Anthony.
A gente está vendo aí, logo mais tarde ele está lembrando que teremos as competições de Sanda, que são as competições de combate pela tarde. O Alan estava explicando mais cedo que as artes marciais e outras artes marciais incorporam movimentos de Wushu e passam a utilizá-las aí. Está vendo a apresentação do atleta do Paraguai. Nick Gonzalez.
And following him is our next competitor will be from Canada. That's Rasa Ranima will be competing.
Final score of S number 3, 8.68. S number 5, please.
And the final score for Nick Gonzalez, 8.68. Several deductions for stances. And now we have Rasa Ranima from Canada in the men's Nandao Group A event. And as well, he is demonstrating the compulsory Group A routine.
Apresentação agora do Canadá, o Alan que está aqui conosco Ele é coordenador de coreografia da equipe do Canadá. Is that your athlete?
He's on our national team, yes, from Canada. Oh, a slight stumble there. You see, that's a 540-degree inside jump kick. But very, very important for the athletes to land that with no movement at all.
Os importantes ele está fazendo aí, o Alan lembra? Is that right?
Yes, that's an inside drop kick onto the ground with a kip up to get up, leading into the final section of his routine. And always at the final section, that's where judges are looking for your endurance and stamina, how much power you have at the end of the form.
Eles estão atentos à quantidade de força que você coloca no movimento. A gente vê que o atleta está ali, ele está virado para o lado dos juízes, encarando mesmo. Final da apresentação do atleta do Canadá.
That's Rasa Ranima, the fifth athlete in this group, which is down to 13 athletes, I believe, in this event.
Dando aí a pontuação.
As he patiently awaits for his score. Final score 8.90. So you see the 70 is the deduction for his loss of balance after that inside jump kick.
Perdeu pouco do equilíbrio, foi isso que tirou pontos dele.
And that 73 is where
As in number 11.
he mishandled his sword, or it touched his body.
E outro erro aí, o 73, é que ele tocou a espada no corpo.
Yeah, or the floor, because that's very common is when athletes are using these weapons, there's certain parts of the form where they are supposed to hit the floor, but certain parts where they're not supposed to hit. So if they hit the floor, then it is a mistake. That's losing control of your weapon.
Tem movimentos que podem a espada tocar no chão, alguns que não. Se não pode, é tirado pontos.
This
Próximo
is
atleta,
Chi Lung Lao from Hong Kong. So
de
this
Hong
is
Kong.
our number 10 athlete. He's demonstrating an optional routine. This is a back tuck into a butterfly stance landing. Very popular movement in senior level competition. And you saw there, he did a full 540-degree inside jump kick and as well outside. So these difficulty movements are much harder than those in the compulsory routine. So as long as the athlete is able to land them, as an observer, I would say his form is much more difficult to perform, and therefore if he does it well, his mark should be higher than those who do a compulsory routine.
Está fazendo movimentos aí bem mais avançados que os outros, por isso ele é melhor avaliado pelos juízes.
And that's where you see the advantage of athletes that are much more skilled. They would definitely choose to do the optional routine because it showcases their ability to be higher than everybody else.
Está vendo aí, visivelmente perceptível que o atleta tem habilidades melhores, que é o caso desse aí, ele pode fazer movimentos aí opcionais, como no caso livres, da melhor maneira possível.
Very well done. Exceptional form by the athlete from Hong Kong, Chi Lung Lao.
Ela avaliou aí como excepcional a apresentação do atleta de Hong Kong.
That is definitely the strategy of the athlete, knowing that he can demonstrate an optional routine, so he'll have very little deduction areas, but as well, he can choreograph the form to become very beautiful based on his ability, and he would get and achieve a very high B-level score. So overall, his score should be definitely much higher than the other athletes.
Por causa dos movimentos deles terem sido mais difíceis, o score maior está aí a prova.
And we see there a score of 9.31. jumping him into first place in this men's Nandao Group A event.
O melhor da competição até agora nesse grupo. 9.31 a nota dele, atleta de Hong Kong.
Next up, we have our athlete from Turkey. This is Mustafa Kapaglu.
Atleta da Turquia, Mustafa.
Oh, actually, it skipped. This is our Iranian athlete. My mistake. Mohammed Farushani. Our athlete,
Corrigindo, é um atleta do Irã.
our athlete from Turkey will be next.
Turco será o próximo.
So you see, the Iranian athletes, very quick. They have very good physical training. That's, as a coach, that's what I would assume in their training. Very physical, so that is why their stamina, their speed is very well done.
Veio o atleta iraniano, conhecido pela agilidade, pela força, tido como melhores que os outros.
But the difference, as you see from him, Mohammed, to the last athlete, is the style of the form. Doing the optional form, the Hong Kong athlete was really able to bring out his style and his expression in the routine, whereas Mohammed doing the compulsory form, some of the movements might not quite match his style of performance, but being a compulsory routine, he has to follow exactly the movements and is performing the exact sequence, but it might not necessarily highlight his strength.
A apresentação aí do atleta iraniano, diferente da anterior, é composta, portanto, ele tem movimentos aí pré-determinados e já conhecidos. Ele tem que tentar fazer da forma mais perfeita possível para não ter deduções e tiradas de pontos. Guardando aí o score, a pontuação do atleta iraniano.
And yesterday, you have been watching the Sanda for the last few days. Do you see the relationship between the Taolu and the Sanda?
Yeah, because some movements they can, like a butterfly kick, they do that, but on the competitor, the other competitor.
A very good score for Mohammed. His final score 9.24. So as you see, very clean, well done, good power and speed. However, the difference is the B score in the performance of the athlete. Next, we have Mustafa Kapaglu from Turkey. And typically in the tradition of Wushu is the Taolu is the shadow boxing or the training for the athlete when they are alone practicing their punches, their strikes, their sequence and their agility. Whereas the Sanda is the application of movement. So in Wushu competition, they have taken that to a much higher level. So that most athletes now, they specialize in one or the other. But in practicality, good athletes should be training in both the understanding of the application of their Wushu, but as well training through the Taolu,
But it's not the
their
obligation.
agility.
Do Taolu first, then the Sanda.
No, it's cross training. Is for example, when you see in Brazil very famous soccer players or football players, they can run. They train in running, but as well they train in their kicking, because both aspects or both elements are required in the game. Are very important. But some athletes might be better kickers or strikers, and some athletes are very fast, so they're better runners. So it's kind of the same example that you can use in Wushu. However, in the competition right now is you see the athletes specializing to focus on one or the other. But in reality, they should be training both to understand it.
O Alan está explicando que está comparando com futebol. Há atletas que correm, há atletas que chutam melhor. No Taolu e no Sanda, que tem essa diferença também. Um precisa do outro, principalmente no Sanda precisa do Taolu. Há atletas que são melhores em um e em outros.
Because it's important, that's why the B score is if you cannot showcase that you're understanding and your ability to use the movement, that should be a big difference in your performance or training in Wushu. A good athlete should not only be able to perform the movement, but they should understand the use of their movement and how it applies in self-defense or martial application.
Pode não entender completamente, mas saber usar, pode até usar para defesa pessoal.
We're now at our moving up to our next athlete. The final score for Turkey is 8.82. And moving on to our athlete from the USA is Daniel Hu. Yesterday he placed 4th in his event in the Nangwon event. Today, let's see how he does in the Nandao.
O atleta dos Estados Unidos se apresentou ontem e está se apresentando hoje novamente, em outra modalidade. Está vendo aí o Nandao. Sétima competição mundial júnior de Wushu que acontece aqui em Brasília.
This is a optional event. You see the back tuck into a butterfly stance. Very important stance. You see they have to have their foot land at the same time and flat with the ground. Not very easy.
Não é nada fácil. A gente vê aí movimentos opcionais, que são livres, no caso.
So his choreography in his optional routine is very similar to a senior level routine. He's placing all different elements of his difficulty at the beginning of the routine, saving his energy, and then trying to showcase his speed in the second and third section, as we'll see here.
Estava guardando energia aí para soltá-la agora nos próximos movimentos, nessa terceira parte. Is that important to count some points?
What's that?
The shouting of the
The shouting, definitely it is, because in the Southern style, the cries or the screams helps you showcase your power in this type of routine. However, in the compulsory form, there are certain areas you're supposed to do it. So if you do it at the wrong place, you will get deducted as well. But in the optional
If I
routine,
shout in the wrong place,
you get deducted, yes, for the compulsory routine. But in the optional, really, you can do it wherever you want. But as well, it is a part of your performance. It will only look good if it's not in the appropriate place. It affects the overall rhythm or the feel of your form.
Perguntei pro Alan se é importante o fato dos gritos, aí a gente viu que esse atleta grita bastante. Ele diz que, inclusive, se gritar na hora errada, o atleta pode ser penalizado por isso. Então, até para gritar, eles têm que ter aí uma perfeição.
We wait the final score for Daniel Hui. It is 9.15, good enough to put him into 3rd place at the moment, with 2 more athletes to go. Next we have the athlete from Macau, Loi Chit Chung.
Então, os Estados Unidos ficou em terceiro lugar e agora a gente vê o atleta do Macau.
As well, a very, very strong athlete yesterday, doing very well in the men's Nangwon event.
O atleta bem forte, se apresentou muito bem ontem
So
aqui no campeonato.
I expect him to perform just as well today, I would assume. This is the Nandao optional routine.
A expectativa é que ele se apresente bem nessa de Nandao também.
Outside 540-degree rotation. Inside 540-degree rotation. Outside 360.
Focando muito nas apresentações, usando rotações, esse atleta do Macau. A gente vê aí alguns atletas gritam mais que os outros. O Alan estava explicando mais cedo pra gente que realmente até o grito conta e eles têm que gritar no momento certo, senão é descontado pontos deles nas apresentações. Você está assistindo a o sétimo campeonato mundial júnior de Wushu que acontece aqui em Brasília. Nós estamos no terceiro dia do evento que vai até amanhã. Logo mais à tarde continuam as apresentações, inclusive nós temos aí Sanda, a modalidade de combate do Wushu. Finalizada a apresentação do atleta de Macau, Yoshit Shun. Vamos aguardar aí a pontuação dele.
We await the final score for the athlete from Macau. He should definitely give the top few athletes a good challenge for those medal positions. Very strong routine. He's just waiting for that mark. It looks like he's gonna smash the TV. Give me my mark.
Tá bem apreensivo aí. Eu tô falando que ele tá pensando assim. Dá minha pontuação aí.
He's ready to go again. Next event.
What is the age of these guys?
16 to 18.
16, 18.
Yes, and you'll notice a few of them. And that is why they included the optional routines in this group, is to really prepare their experience and ability for the senior level competition as they move on from the juniors.
A idade deles é entre 16 e 18 anos. Eles estão quase aí na fase adulta, então os movimentos são bem precisos, as técnicas são bem importantes e boas, quase técnicas de adultos. They're almost in adults.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. Just moving up.
Caminho aí das competições adultas, então o nível deles é bem maior.
His final score, 9.06. And one deduction for the code 30. And that is for not kicking above his shoulder level on one of his jump kicks. So you see, even though he put so many difficulty, if you don't perform it to expectation, you get a deduction, it hurts your score a lot.
A dedução dele aí foi porque ele não chutou tão bem acima do ombro. Por isso foi tirado pontos aí. A pontuação final dele é 9.06, atleta do Macau. Agora,
and that leads us to our final competitor. This is Randall Lim from Singapore.
atleta da Singapura na última apresentação de Nandao.
Here's his back tuck into a butterfly stance landing. Inside 540 into a butterfly stance. And that is an inside jump kick into a front gainer. Optional routine. And again, him showcasing some of the more difficult moves. So as long as they are able to execute them, it should get them a higher mark. But that's the important thing, or more difficult aspect, is being able to complete those movements.
Como opcional, eles são livres para fazer os movimentos, mas os movimentos são mais difíceis de serem concluídos de forma correta e perfeita. Tá vendo aí a apresentação do atleta de Singapura.
And that is it. And that's Randall Lim from Singapore, and he completes the field of athletes for the men's Nandao Group A event, Southern Broadsword. And immediately following this, in field play number 2, we will move on to the women's Group A, Nandao.
Aí a nota. O último atleta da apresentação de Nandao, de Singapura.
And what you'll notice, Raphael, over the next few days, especially for those of our guests who are watching the medal award ceremony as well, and following hashtag WWD, which is World Wushu Day. That's taking place August the 11th, and the International Wushu Federation has declared every August 11th as World Wushu Day, where concurrently many nations around the world are creating events and performances and different types of Wushu-related activities to celebrate the growth of Wushu around the world.
Ele está falando que o Dia Internacional do Wushu é comemorado em agosto, no dia 17.
The final score for Randall Lim, 9.17, so he pushes himself into 3rd place. So 1 deduction in his routine.
Terceiro lugar no ranking final.
That made the difference between him getting a silver medal, but that was exactly for that butterfly stance, where his heel, by doing so many difficulty landing in it, it gives him the opportunity that if his heel is up and the judges catch it, then they will deduct him, and that was the 1 deduction.
Ele tenha deduzido pontos aí, ganhou a medalha de bronze.
Porra, essa que eu tô ouvindo aqui, né? Essa turma. O que tá botando no nosso que eu ouvi, né?
Hashtag WWD.
That's
Right.
correct.
August 17th.
August 11th. August 11th.
11 de agosto, corrigindo aí. 11 de agosto. Comemorado Dia Mundial do Wushu.
And next we're moving on to the women's event.
Agora a apresentação de Nandao das meninas. A primeira atleta é do Macau, San In-won.
She was a winner of yesterday's women's Nanchan, or the barehanded event.
Ela foi uma das vencedoras de uma das competições de ontem, ali de ouro.
Yes, so we expect her to continue and showcase and show us a strong performance in the the Southern Broadsword event.
女子男刀1号上场，2号准备。
Arena 1, girls Nandao
Ela
A.
ganhou medalha de ouro ontem e a expectativa é que ela continue desempenhando faça uma boa apresentação hoje também. Estou com o Alan, que está acompanhando a gente aqui, que é coordenador de coreografia do time do Canadá.
And here she is performing. This is the compulsory Group A, Nandao.
Os compostos.
Actually, no, it's a optional routine. She had a very similar opening, but it is not the compulsory foot.
Optional?
Optional.
No caso é opcional a apresentação dela. Movimentos livres.
Because some athletes, you'll even see that their forms are very similar, but they make minute changes in order to either take out movements or add movements that will make them look better.
Explicando, às vezes eles começam a fazer aqueles movimentos pré-determinados, eles já mudam, inventam outros no meio, por isso a confusão aí de movimentos compostos e livres, são casos opcionais. A apresentação da primeira atleta feminina de Nandao, do Macau. a nota da atleta do Macau na apresentação. As meninas, da modalidade Nandao do Wushu aqui na 7º Campeonato Mundial Júnior de Wushu, que acontece em Brasília. Lembrando que a competição começou na quinta e vai até domingo, aqui na capital do Brasil, Brasília. A competição acontece no ginásio Nilson Nelson.
We are at the Nelson Gymnasium here in Brasília, Brazil, at the 7th World Junior Wushu Championships. I'm Alan Tang, and I'm here with Rafael, my fellow Brazilian commentator, joining us in the women's Nandao Group A event, where we have a field of approximately, I believe it's going to be 10 athletes in this event. And we are currently awaiting the score of our first athlete, Sam-Ing Wong, and she scores a 9.17, a very good score. A good baseline to start off the event.
Só alguns problemas na base, nenhuma redução.
And next we have from Malaysia, Hui Xian Lee.
Próxima atleta da Malásia.
And this is the compulsory Group A routine.
Compostos. Is that good?
It's not bad. She's done well in the other events.
Is she fast?
Well, you compare her to the athlete earlier, much faster. So her form is not bad, but the speed for Nandao, ferocity, you really need to pick it up.
Tá falando que a velocidade comparada da última atleta para essa é notável. Dá pra gente ver que falta velocidade, falta sagacidade, ferocidade, no caso. É boa, mas nem tanto, resumindo de acordo com o nosso comentarista, Alan. Are you Canadian?
I definitely am. Born and raised in Canada.
Canadense. Inclusive já foi coreógrafo até de alguns filmes do Jet Li e várias outras produções aí internacionais.
And that was Hui Xian Lee from Malaysia. And next, following her, we will have athlete from Iran.
Um atleta é do Irã. Vamos aguardar aí a nota da atleta da Malásia. Malaysia?
Malaysia.
2号这
And her final score, 8.99. So you see 2 deductions for her jump kicks where they were below her shoulder level. But based on her B score alone, her speed and her performance was just not as quick as the previous athlete.
O tempo dela foi mais lento do que os outros e teve 2 deduções pelos chutes não irem tão acima do ombro.
There's Mina Dorchat from Iran, another very strong athlete from
Atleta
their
do
team,
Irã, outra atleta bem forte, segundo a Alan.
performing the compulsory Group A form.
Muito composto.
Inside jump kick, 540. Outside jump kick, very strong.
Muito forte os movimentos.
This is where we see whether the athletes have good stamina and endurance. If they can keep up that speed and pace towards these last two sections.
Notável aí os atletas com todos os
Very
a
fierce.
velocidade deles e muita velocidade.
And you see she's doing very well, very strong, right to this point. Into our final section.
Saindo muito bem, bem forte a apresentação dela.
Well done. Another very strong performance by the Iranian athlete. That's Mina Dorchek.
Outra performance bem forte aí dos iranianos. E mais uma vez, por conta da religião, as mulheres têm os cabelos presos, tampados. Inclusive até os braços. Even the arms are...
Yes. Yeah, depending on athlete, but you see how beautiful that job is. Very beautiful. Matches her, and it looks like a part of her entire uniform. And the final score 9.15, putting her into second place. Very well done.
Lugar. Vale muito bem, a gente estava falando mais cedo da questão da roupa.
As number
que também
5,
conta.
please enter the
Nesse
arena.
caso aí, bastante
As number
muito
6, please
And that
prepare.
code 62 is specific to the sword, where the judges are deducting her for the inappropriate use of her sword. So even though she was very, very fast, that consequence is many of the movements are not as clear. And one of the main requirements for that sword is to be very close to the body. So when you go too fast, you'll miss out on that, and you look fast, but you're making, I wouldn't say a mess, but not very clear the required movement. So that deduction was for the sword being too far away from her body.
Tirado alguns pontos dela por causa dos movimentos errados com a espada, que provavelmente ela tocou ou deixou muito próximo ao do corpo.
Right now, this is our athlete from Vietnam, Tao Hong Duong.
Atleta do Vietnã se apresentando agora. Opcional.
No, this is the compulsory group A.
Os compostos que ela está apresentando são muito pré-determinados. Já conhecidos, eles têm que realizar com a máxima perfeição. Which one is more difficult? Optional or
It is based on the athlete ability. The compulsory form, if you cannot do the movements in that form, is very difficult. The optional, if you choose to put hard movements but cannot do them, is difficult. So to make either form, it at the end of the day, it really, in my opinion as a coach or an athlete, it shouldn't make a difference. If you're good, you're good.
optional or composed?
Yes, optional or compulsory. But the optional form just allows you to highlight your strength and hide your weaknesses. Whereas the compulsory form, you have to do both.
Ele está explicando aqui para mim que qual que é mais difícil, se é o composto ou o opcional. Ele diz que depende do atleta. Se você é bom, você é bom. Em um ou em outro. Vai depender de cada atleta.
Final score for Tao Hong Duong, 8.98. 2 deductions, one for her loss of balance that you saw, and the 52 for her stances, where she didn't have quite a good shubu, which is the empty stance.
Posições aí, por causa da base mal feita, algumas delas.
Next up, we have Po Yan Lao from Hong Kong in the women's Nandao.
Atleta de Hong Kong se apresentando agora.
And she is demonstrating an optional routine. Very fierce, quick opening. Starts off inside jump kick,
Chute seguido de
outside jump kick,
para fora, seguido de salto. There's a specific name, the shout, or no?
not necessarily, no.
No.
Very strong routine so far.
Bem
Very clean.
agora.
And you see the rhythm. It's important to have both the slow movements, the fast movements. And when you do the slow movement, it actually highlights how fast you go when you go fast. Very important aspect in the design of your routine.
Muito importante também a velocidade.
Moving on to the final section.
No final dela.
Well done. A very strong routine by Yan Lao from Hong Kong.
Sequência bem forte. De acordo com Alan Teng, que é coordenador do time de coreografia do Canadá e nosso comentarista.
She has done well in each of her events so far. Medaling in, I believe, both of her previous events in both the Barehand Nanquan and as well the Nanguan.
Já
So-
foi medalhista em outros eventos e está participando. Agora vamos ver, aguardar a pontuação dela.
Her final score, 9.16, placing her in second place.
Final
Ela de
score
Hong
of
Kong com o segundo lugar aí com 9.16.
And that 30 code being her kick not high enough. And again, where you look at putting many difficult moves in your form, but again, making sure you execute them properly.
Pelo chute não ser tão alto. Próxima,
This is Razina Tamang from India.
apresentação da atleta indiana.
Demonstrating the compulsory Group A form.
Para cair tão ruim assim, né?
Is she not as fast as
Not as fast. Her movements are clear, but you can see the strength in her jumps. This is a compulsory form, and that's a very clear difference when you look at the height and the power behind her jumps. They're very far behind the top few athletes.
A gente vê a diferença, essa atleta mais lenta, o Alan concordou comigo, a diferença dela e de atletas já renomados.
We'll wait the final score. Razina from India.
Atleta indiana aguardando o score, aguardando a pontuação. The age of these girls are between
Same.
16
16 and 18. Yes.
They come to adult championships with 18.
Once they're 18, they're eligible to compete at the senior level. So that's why this is a transitional group, where many of the athletes here that are 18, they will move on to try to compete for their national team at the senior world
With
championship.
18, they can compete in both. No?
I'm sorry?
If the athlete is 18 years old, he can compete on the senior level or junior level.
Correct. Yes.
Com 18 anos ele pode competir tanto no júnior quanto na categoria adulta.
I believe that will be another change though next World Championship. Her final score 8.41. So the next championship, they will be limiting the juniors to 16 and 17. No more 18s next year.
Provavelmente nas próximas competições júnior eles vão limitar até 17 anos.
Next, we have Emma Elkerton from Canada. She is my student. So this is her very first World Junior Wushu Championship.
Aluna do Alan,
So
aí
let's-
estamos contando a primeira competição internacional dela.
Wish her luck and see how she does.
Como é que ela se sai.
And I know as a lot of athletes, their very first event, very nervous. So this being her third event now, hopefully she pulls it together and performs to her capability. Inside jump kick. Outside jump kick. This is the compulsory group A, Nandao form.
Cidade de Nandao. Fazendo aí na competição mundial de Wushu, 7º campeonato mundial júnior de Wushu.
She's doing well so far.
Indo muito bem até agora.
And as I mentioned, now these are the sections where the athlete really has to showcase how much energy they have and whether they can keep up their speed and power.
Ter aí a velocidade e o poder, a força deles.
Final section.
Final de movimentos.
Well done. Good performance by Emma Elkerton from Canada.
Muito bem, elogiada pelo próprio técnico aí, Alan. É uma das alunas dele, que ele é coreógrafo, coordenador de coreografia do time do Canadá.
And she is the 10th athlete in this group. We have, I believe, 2 more athletes to go.
For example, is that your athlete? What she has to improve?
Speed, endurance, those are the main aspects because with any sport, those are always areas that you want your athletes to improve upon. So her final score, 8.87. And as you see there, a deduction for that jump kick being too low.
Final score of
Melhorando a velocidade, o Alan estava reforçando aqui.
as number 12, please
And
enter
as
the
well,
ring.
that is where that final stance, she wasn't sitting low enough onto her back leg, or actually, it might have been that her knee was too close to the ground touching it, on that guibo, we call it the kneeling stance.
O joelho bem próximo do chão, um dos erros dela, e o fato de como parar a base dela foram as deductions, as deduções que ela teve.
And here is our athlete from Singapore, Josephine Lee.
Atleta de Singapura, se apresentando agora.
As well demonstrating the Group A Nandao.
Fazendo a apresentação do grupo A, do Nandao.
So a very clear difference you see from the current top 3 athletes is, especially in the southern Brasília, the Nandao, is that speed and endurance. You see the top 3 athletes really have no trouble starting and going through their entire routine, and they look like they have so much energy they could do it again. But whereas the latter half of the athletes, you do find that that is one of their areas that they need to improve, is that strength and endurance towards the end of the routine.
Os atletas têm que trabalhar endurance. Endurance é um tipo de fortalecimento dos atletas e também a velocidade. Explain more about this endurance that you talk about.
Endurance is like running. There are good sprinters and there are good marathon runners. Some can run very, very far. Some are only good at short distance. During the Wushu Taolu competition, it's kind of a mix of both. You need that quick burst of energy like a sprinter, the twitching muscles, to make yourself look fast and move fast. However, you need the endurance of a marathon runner in order to pace yourself at a rhythm, to be able to look strong and look fast from beginning to end. Because many of these athletes, if they don't train that rhythm or the endurance and pace breathing, you'll see by the time they get to the middle of the routine, it looks like they have no more energy and it looks like their fuel has died out. So the good athletes, they're able to maintain their energy. They train beyond that 1 minute and 20 seconds. And they're able to perform not only one routine, you could probably tell them to go out again and do it again. So it's very different, and you can see that right away. That's why when we look at an athlete demonstrate, by the time they get to the middle of the routine, now you're judging them on also not only their speed, but how they maintain their endurance and stamina.
Resumindo, a distribuição de energia que é muito importante. Você manter o pique, digamos assim, durante toda a competição. Esse é o tal do endurance que ele estava falando. Agora,
we are on our final athlete. This is Rahula Khalil from Egypt. She got caught on her weapon. You saw that onto her hijab. So she actually got caught. So that's one of the disadvantages. But you see the experience of the Iranian athletes. They put that garment inside their uniform very beautifully and very nicely, so it wouldn't do that. So we saw that that's one of the problems, is the athlete with not as much experience, she got her weapon caught on it. And many times the athlete catches it on their belt or their bottom of their uniform, and that comes with the experience of the athlete.
tá falando aí, atleta do Egito, igual da iraniana, usa aí um pano para cobrir a cabeça, no estilo dos países.
And she is our final competitor today in field of play number 2. But we might go into one more event over here. We might be moving on to the Group C boys Daoshu. I believe they're going to place that here into field of play number 1, the Group C boys Daoshu.
Guardando aí a última apresentação do grupo Nandao de garotas no 7º Campeonato Mundial Júnior de Wushu. Atleta do Egito.
And her final score, 8.80. So you see a few of those deductions for not kicking high enough, and as well for her getting her weapon caught, and as well for a loss of balance.
Por causa do equilíbrio aí, teve bastante deduções de pontos.
And we complete that women's Group A, Nandao, Macau, first place, Hong Kong, second place, Iran, third place with the bronze medal. I'm very proud of Emma coming in 6th place today. Much improved.
Atleta do Ala ficou em
Taolu 3, Nandao, boys, Daoshu C. We'd like to invite all the athletes. Our award ceremony is going to be taken at the end of this session.
have the Group A Jianshu or straight swords events as well.
As últimas apresentações dessa tarde. Essa manhã.
And right now at the side, the head judge is just reviewing all of these athletes to ensure that their weapons are long enough, because there are requirements for how long the weapon is, and as well just verifying the uniforms and helping all of these athletes ensure that they perform appropriately to technical requirements.
Levar uma lapada, moleque.
男子 C 组倒数，1号上场，3号准备。
Arena 1. Boys Daoshu. As the number 1, please enter the arena. As the number 3, please prepare.
This is now the boys Group C, 12 and under Daoshu. All athletes are demonstrating the compulsory routine.
Está na competição de Daoshu.
Our first athlete from Chile, Thomas Toledo.
Atleta do Chile se apresentando. Thomas Toledo do Chile.
As he awaits his score, the Group C boys, we have a start list of 12 athletes.
grupo de 12 atletas que se apresentam agora na modalidade Daoshu.
And the Group C, I always say, is one of, if not the hardest division in the World Junior Championships, because it is all based on the athletes' understanding and performance of the fundamental basics in Wushu. All of the basic stances, strikes, and when they use the apparatus, how clear and powerful they are able to showcase each and every movement.
Grupo C, movimentos mais básicos.
So you see in the routine there are many stances, and the judges are very strict on that and deduct based on every mabu, horse stance that they do, gongbu, bow stance. They're very keen in terms of the athlete's ability to hold their balance on every movement and be very clear, crisp, and as well stable on every movement they perform.
Bastante problemas aí nas bases que ele fez.
This is our athlete from India.
Próximo atleta da Índia se apresentando agora.
And in field of play number 2, we have the girls Group C Daoshu.
Apresentação do grupo dos meninos da modalidade Daoshu.
See, the judges are looking for the clarity, how high each kick is, the use of the weapon, and more importantly, the stability and the execution of each and every stance. Very difficult to do it throughout the entire routine.
Movimentos bem difíceis, feitos aí pelo atleta da Índia. Guardando a pontuação.
Final score, 8.39.
As number 4, please enter the arena. As number 5, please prepare.
Our next competitor, as well from Canada, this is Kai-Shin Chang. He is on our team, but our team in Canada is made up of many athletes from across the country. He is from Toronto, one of our younger athletes.
Atleta do Canadá, olha, está me contando do time que ele trabalha. Esse aí, no caso, é de Toronto. Eles têm vários times espalhados por todo o país.
Good stances. It's a drop stance. Final component or sequence. Good job by Kai-Shin Chang. Such a short routine, but you see how much energy it takes out of the kids. They're trying and putting in so much effort during their performance of the routine.
It's about 10 years.
Yes, they're about 10 years of age. Most of the competitors you'll see in the Group C are between, I would say, 8 and 12. Because when they're too young, they haven't learned long enough to make it to this level, right? So the time frame you have as an athlete at the Junior Worlds is really only about 2-3 years, because most athletes still compete once or at most twice in each of the different age groups, and then they'll have to move on. So that makes it actually much more difficult for the athletes, because at the senior level, they're practicing one routine for a very, very long time. But whereas at the junior level, they have to switch routines and learn something new, and then after one competition, they move on and learn another routine, and each one, as they move up, the difficulty gets higher and higher and higher. So that is why it is so important at the beginning, Group C level, for the athletes to train those basics, the fundamental movements of Wushu, to develop them, so as they move up, Group B, they start introducing jumps and combinations, and then when they get to Group A, the more difficulty movements, and as well the speed and power of the Group A compulsory and optional forms.
Tá falando que esses grupos têm de 8 a 12 anos, é importante eles treinarem aí as bases, os movimentos básicos primeiro, para depois aí ganharem velocidade, ganharem força, irem se aprimorando e passarem para as próximas etapas. Aguardando aí a pontuação do atleta canadense.
Taolu judges are checked.
As we await the final score for Kai-Shin Chang. And the final score for Kai-Shin, 8.68.
5号上场，6号准备。
Final score of S number 4, 8.68. S number 5, please enter the arena.
Moving on,
S
the
number-
next
S
athlete,
number 6,
James
please
Liu
prepare.
from New Zealand. He is the 5th athlete in this group of, there will be 10 competitors. Moving on to the final sequence of his routine.
Aguarda aí a pontuação.
号最后得分8.12，6号上场，7号准备。
The final score 8.12.
Atleta da Nova Zelândia.
And
New
the
Zealand,
next
right?
New Zealand. And the next athlete from Iran will be Amir Hossein Sharazez.
Atleta do Irã.
Very quick, powerful movements.
Movimentos bem rápidos, fortes. Viu a apresentação do atleta iraniano.
You can see how nervous or what the athlete must be thinking, waiting for his score.
Ele está bastante nervoso aí.
His final score 8.52.
Seu final 8.52.
Athlete number 7, please enter the arena. Athlete number 9, please prepare.
Next up, we have the athlete from Brazil, is Arthur Baptista.
O brasileiro aí, Arthur Batista, se apresentando, o único brasileiro desse grupo. Torcida aí cantando o hino nacional, com a apresentação do Arthur.
Working really hard in front of these Brazilian fans. See the energy and effort placed into his routine. And that is what you really look at with these youngsters, is the determination as they perform.
Arthur aqui no ginásio. What to talk about his movements?
He's putting a lot of power and energy in. There are several of the movements you see that drop stance, not quite as clean as you would want it to be. You have to keep those legs very, very straight, especially in this group of competitors. But good determination. You see his effort and his intent in his expression worked really, really hard.
A expressão dele está bastante determinada, bem forte. Isso pela torcida.
Yeah. They let everything out on that floor.
Bem cansado. Guardando o resultado, o atleta brasileiro Arthur Malê Batista.
And we have 4 more athletes. And his final score, 8.27. Well done. But you see a few of the deductions for those stances and a slight loss of balance.
Perdeu muito equilíbrio aí, foi o que ele perdeu pontos. 8,27 a nota do brasileiro. Não participa do quadro de medalhas, ele ficou em quarto lugar.
Next up, we have Gang Yim Chan from Singapore.
Atleta de Singapura. What about his movements?
His movements are very quick. His stances are clean. But what I would say is they're very small, right? But, 12 and under, they're small children, but a little too small. You'd want more extension of the movements to take up especially more room on that carpet, okay? But in this group, again, their performance for under 12, very well done.
Atleta de menos de 12 anos, tem uma boa performance, segundo o Alan, e falta um pouco mais de extensão nos movimentos que ele fez ao longo da apresentação. Aguardando aí a nota do atleta de Singapura.
And his final score, 8.84, currently moves him into first place.
Primeiro lugar aí do grupo até agora. Balance problem.
As number 9,
Stance.
8.84. As number 10, please enter the arena.
Das
As number
bases.
11, please prepare.
Next we have Victor Carrizo from Argentina.
Próximo atleta da Argentina, Vitor. Is there specific shoes that they use?
There are. What you're looking for are very lightweight, flat shoes in order for you to showcase all of your stances. Okay. However, there are still different styles, but the most important is these shoes are designed for Wushu competition. But you see, when looking at his feet, Victor, he's having a little trouble with his stances and making them solid on the ground, because you can see that from all of the movement of the foot. The higher level athletes, you will see their feet look like they're glued to the ground. And that's a big difference in how you analyze the athlete in their performance.
Tá falando aí que os atletas mais experientes, eles colam realmente o pé no chão. A gente vê esse problema claro no Vitor, que ele não consegue colocar o pé total no chão. Is that take out points because I didn't glue all the shoes
Yes.
on the floor?
Yes, especially during that bow stance, is when the heel is lifted off the floor, that is a deduction for the gongbu.
O atleta, ele realmente tira, ele ganha penalidades, ele tira pontos dele se ele não tocar o pé totalmente no chão, o que aconteceu com o Vitor, atleta argentino. Vamos aguardar aí a pontuação dele.
Final score, 7.65. And we're coming up to our final two athletes. Our next athlete is from Indonesia. This is Lawrence Kurnia from Indonesia.
Introduções do atleta argentino, próximo atleta da Indonésia, nosso penúltimo atleta.
Very fierce. You see his attitude as he walks out.
Bem feroz aí. Ela tá comentando aí. A little bit different his movements.
The style. It's the style that he's presenting each movement, but you see the attitude and the ferocity in his expression. I would expect a very strong B score for Lawrence here. Very clear, putting the energy.
Movimentos bem claros, com muita energia.
He's almost telling the judges he wants a high score.
Tá falando para os juízes aí que ele realmente quer uma pontuação alta.
And that is one of the main things that they learn in the Wushu is how to develop their confidence. And you show that and you're able to see that in the athletes that are confident is they tell you without speaking.
Uma das coisas que eles aprendem no Wushu é a confiança. Isso que ele está tentando passar aí para os juízes.
Very good, strong attitude from Lawrence. It's good.
Bastante confiante o garotinho aí.
You know, one of the aspects you want your athletes to have. Yeah.
Cara de bravo, aguardando aí o resultado. Maybe the first place?
I would say he's going to challenge that, definitely. 8.94, very well done by Lawrence Kernia. And for the athletes watching, you really learn and you see the difference in the attitude of the athletes. And you're out there to compete, you have to ask and expect to win.
A atitude dele fez toda a diferença, segundo o Alan aí.
Big part of the training. This is our final athlete in this group, Saul Magana from Mexico.
O último atleta aí se apresentar nesse grupo, o mexicano.
And be sure, for our viewers, please join us back this afternoon as we continue the next session of the Wushu Taolu events. We'll have the Group A Jianshu,
A partir da tarde, nós continuamos com as nossas apresentações de Wushu na modalidade Taolu.
and
A
as
partir
well,
das 3 horas da tarde.
we'll have the boys and girls Tai Chi Chuan, and of course, the Dui Lian, or the fighting choreography in the Wushu competition.
Temos as modalidades do Lian e Tai Chi Chuan. A partir das 3 horas da tarde. A gente viu aí a última apresentação desse grupo do mexicano aguardando a pontuação.
As we wait for the final score for Saul. He scores 8.20. So that completes our Group C Daoshu boys event. First place going to Singapore, followed by Indonesia and to Canada.
Primeiro lugar para Singapura, segundo para a Indonésia e terceiro para o Canadá.
I am Alan Tang, along with my comrade. This is Raphael at the 7th World Junior Wushu Championships, and we will be signing off this morning.
Eu sou o Rafael, ele é o Alan Tang. Estamos na cobertura do 7º Campeonato Mundial Júnior de Wushu, que continua na parte da tarde. Não sai daí, voltamos logo mais.
Good job.
Ladies and gentlemen, our award ceremony is going to start soon.
Pausa. Luiz, pausa com o Luiz. Beleza, deixa ele ligar então. Beleza.
Nossa. Se não fosse aquela telinha lá, tava... Bélgica, ó.
Ladies and gentlemen, please. Any lost and found items, please bring to the press area. Any lost and found items, please bring to the press area. third place, Jojo Park, Korea. Malaysia. And the gold medal to Syed Hosseini, Iran. Now, please stand for the national anthem of Iran. Thank you and congratulations to the athletes. Next category, girls Daoshu A. Please welcome the athletes. And please welcome Mr. Iman Wong, Technical Committee Member of International Wushu Federation, and Mr. Daniel Genesi, President of Brazil Wushu Federation. On third place, Sayed Makbul, Turkey. On second place, Nandao, Indonesia. USA. Now, please stand for the national anthem of USA. you and congratulations to the athletes. The next category is boys Nandao A. Please welcome the athletes. And please welcome Mr. Mani Ananja, representing for the member of the International Wushu Federation. And Mr. Wu Yijun, chairman of member committee of the International Wushu Federation. On third place, Yi Nandao, Singapore. Second place, Mohammed Ali Mochi, Ireland. And the gold medal to Taolu from Hong Kong, China. Now, please stand for the national anthem of People's Republic of China. Thank you and congratulations to the athletes. The next category, girls Nandao A. Please welcome the athletes. And please welcome Mrs. Wu Xiaoli, technical committee member of the International Wushu Federation, and Mr. Marcos Alves, president of the Brazilian Wushu Federation. On third place, Nina Malaki from Czech. Ireland. On second place, Paul Yang Lao, Hong Kong, China. Vietnam. On second place, Mendy Sewell Chen, Malaysia. And the gold medal to Judy Liu from USA. Now please stand for the national anthem of USA. Congratulations to the athletes. The next category, boys Nandao P. Please welcome the athletes. And please welcome Mr. Peter Wall, Vice Chairman of Technical Committee of the National Wushu Federation, and Mr. Marcus Alves, President of Brazilian Wushu Confederation. On third place, G. Graham T. Malaysia. On second place, Ali Kozani, Iran. And gold medal to Jujian Park, Korea. And now, please stand for the national anthem of Korea. Our next category, boys Chenchuan Lee. Please welcome the athletes. And please welcome Mr. Peter Wall, Vice Chairman of Technical Regional International Wushu Federation, and Mr. Byron Jacobs, Technical Coordinator of International Wushu Federation. On third place, Jimmy Long Kim, Korea. Japan. Now please stand for the national anthem of Japan. Thank you and congratulations to the athletes. Our next category, boys Daoshu. Please welcome the athletes. And please welcome Mr. Ivan Hong, Technical Coordinator of International Wushu Federation. And Mr. Daniel Chikis, President of the Brasília Wushu Federation. Our third place, Kaisi Chang, Canada. Our second place, Yan Chang, Singapore. Indonesia. Now, please stand for the national anthem of Indonesia. Thank you and congratulations to the athletes. Our next category, girls Daoshu C. Please welcome the athletes. And please welcome Mr. Mani Anuja, Executive Board Member of the International Wushu Federation. And Mrs. Wu Xiaoyi, Technical Committee Member of the International Wushu Federation. On third place, Sahara Bolshevik, Iran. Indonesia. And the gold medal to Tai Chi Wong, Malaysia. And now, please stand for the national anthem of Malaysia. Thank you. Congratulations.